from Melbourne, Australia, and we're going to run our regular monthly trash talk meeting. So for those who are unaware, I go around everyone in the room. We hear what everyone's up to, and any news or anything, let me know. If you got a question, put your hand up, and I'll get to you. If we could make sure all our cell phones are muted, and we can try to keep swearing or bad language to a minimum, that would also be nice. So,
come on, we got to have a cuss.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
As long as we don't get a Zoom boom, or whatever, Zoom bomb.
A Zoom bomb.
Yeah.
Well, if we're lucky, we'll get a Zoom bomb, but we haven't been that lucky since.
No Zoom bombs.
No. Well, I think they're funny, but I'm not at the controls. So.
That's right.
All right, so I'm going to kick off with the new guy, Knut Roland. How you going, buddy? You're muted.
Yeah.
Hey, mate.
I'm okay. It's kind of strange talking to you. I'm.
Yeah, I know you probably
right.
You probably corresponded with most of us here for the last decade or more. Would that be about right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's an awesome collection you got there in the background.
Yeah, it's what used to be the
kitchen.
Downstairs living room for the previous owner of the house.
You don't need a living room. So anyway, do you want to give us your background, how you got into vintage computers, and let us all know where you're based? For people who don't know, Knut's out of Europe.
Yeah, Norway.
Norway. So it must be cold and early in the morning.
It's better now. We still have some snow.
You started out with the Video Genie, didn't you?
Yes, I'm Video Genie still.
Yep, that's right. Yep. What have you been working on?
Mostly to get the old Video Genie working.
Oh, your original one doesn't work anymore.
There is a problem with the EI, the expansion interface, and something with it's not booting a disk.
You'll get there, and there's plenty of people who know about those things and technical information around it. It's not that complex a device.
Tell us a little bit about the Video Genie, what it is.
It's the same as System 80.
Okay.
In the USA, it was sold as the PMC 80 and the PMC 81, Jay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the European variety is Video Genie or Genie 1.
The distinctive for having fake wooden sides.
What's the expansion interface look like for that? I'm not sure if I've seen that, the Video Genie.
I don't have the box anymore. It's just a card.
Okay.
It's similar in the size to the Radio Shack one. It's not as big as the PMC, Pete. It's more compact. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Same features as the Radio Shack EI?
It makes it actually a bit more compatible because you can do the addresses for instead of the I/O ports. That's original.
In some ways, it's a little bit better. In other ways, it can be a little bit more tricky. Like it's a lot more difficult to connect a thread to a Video Genie's expansion box, but it can be done. Okay, Knut, thanks for that. and thanks for joining us today. Vernon.
Hi.
Hey, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Vernon.
Hi, Peter.
Tell us. You have the floor. Tell us.
Tell us. Okay. There's not too much you can do software-wise. So what I'm doing or have been doing is looking at what I have and seeing if I can just make it more interesting. So what I did with Basic was add what I call kind of hooks into Basic so I can look at my entries of how many adds, subtracts, multiplies, and divides I do. And it's been a lot of fun, and I'm still playing with it. If any, unfortunately, it only works with Super Basic and SO Basic. I wouldn't even attempt to try to do something like that with Basic on the Model 4. That's Microsoft Basic, what is it, 01.0x.0y. Is there a way I could show my screen on this thing?
Yep, there's an option at the bottom. You should see a button to share screen right in the middle at the bottom.
Okay, I clicked it. Now what?
You
I
should.
have a lot of stuff. Should I get rid of everything except one thing or something?
Yeah, you should be able to share just what you want, just the window that you want to share. Does it give you an option to do that?
You
No.
wanted to show us your bank account window. That's okay.
What was that?
All that TRS-80 money.
I guess I have. Do I have too many things open?
Oh,
Oh, I see. So that's it, right? You see that?
I don't see anything yet.
Oh,
Getting a hell of a lot of jitter on this.
This reminds me that judge that was talking to a guy and then his daughter had changed his face to a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm going to do that if I ever have to talk to a judge.
No, Your Honor, I'm not really a cat.
That was the best line ever. Well, I'll come back to you. How about that, Vernon? Once you've got your display worked out, since you're on a learning curve, as are we all. Let's see. Quentin.
Hi, everyone. Well, let's see. Have some updates on CW2 DMK. So hopefully in the next week, maybe less, I'll be releasing some new options. The options are -cap-mi and -cap-me. They allow you with CW2 DMK to activate a menu, and the menu allows you to do several options while controlling the behavior while handling disks with errors. The MI option is if you press Control-C while running, it'll now drop you into the menu, and you can do things like quit, continue, change the number of retries, ignore the current error. Without the MI option, Control-C will just dump you out of the program as it always has. And ME allows you to enter the menu if your number of retries exceeds the track's current error count. Okay. Aside from that, one of the things I'm also thinking of on the Grease Weasel front is adding DMK support to the Disk Analyze program. That would get me familiar with the Grease Weasel's software world before moving on to porting CW2 DMK to the Grease Weasel. So if anyone has any programming experience at all in the Grease Weasel side of the world, let me know. I'd like to hear more back from your experiences. I'll put my email in the chat so you can get a hold of me. That's all I had for this month.
Good on you, mate. Let's see who else. Armadeep, how you going?
Hey everyone. I just had more fun than anybody deserves to have. I just spent the last
Well, at least someone's having fun around here.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to dive into some low-level floppy disk controller programming, and was collaborating a little bit with our friend Yogi Bayer to help him port his cassette to disk boot creator program from the Model 1 to the Model 3. So just with help from some of our great comrades here, I was able to get that functioning last night and sent that over to him. So he's busy porting that. Now with that out of the way, I'm going to move back onto one of the other projects that have been stacked up. All the parts have come in, so I can build that 8051 board to read the Model 2 keyboard ROM. So I'll dive into that next. And the stuff I've written for this floppy disk formatting thing is actually going to come in handy, because I'm also working on something that's going to take that and morph it into something where you can take a cassette and it'll copy it onto a single density floppy disk. And then you can directly boot that on a Model 1 or a Model 3. And it's going to probably initially just handle one, but later it'll add some support so you can put multiple cassettes onto one disk, and then you just boot and it'll give you a little menu. You can pick one and it'll run it. I think that'd be kind of fun, just as an exercise in useless technology.
Useless technology. It's going to register my next business name as Useless Technology Australia Limited. Okay, thanks for that, Armadeep. Good on you, mate. We're gonna. I thought I saw a new one here. Put your hand up if you're new.
Or speak out if you don't have your video going.
Yeah, true. All right. Steve Hall, you're up early. It's the UK, so
late here, dude. It's where are we now? 9:15. So we've done Saturday, and I'm normally in bed by now because I'm an early riser, but stay up late for this. I've entered the wonderful, whimsical world of Tandy 2000s.
They're interesting, aren't they?
Oh, they're a bizarre hybrid between, I think probably what a 12 or a 16 could have been if it was running 8186s, and not quite a PC. It's a bizarre beast internally. So changed all the power supplies over from not very good voltage to 220 voltage. So it's now changed the Tandy 95 watt PSU and the Aztec one for the hard drives. It didn't blow up, which was good. The hard drive's meant to work, but it does sound like something out of Area 51 as it takes off. So as soon as I figure out the video, so RGBI to something a little bit more modern, then we'll see what it's doing. But the RGBI to from a Tandy 1000 is now working. That works fine to VGA. So we're slowly getting there, but that's another thing to look at tomorrow. Ken's also sent me over the Z80 Model 2 to Z180 little conversion board. So that's a little building project going on at the moment. And I'll see if we can get that done now that Mouser have finally delivered my parts to my neighbour rather than to myself. So, but a slow week this weekend.
Which monitors have you got for your Tandy 2000?
Well, there's an interesting question. I haven't, hence all the shenanigans with the video. So currently I'm running one of the CG Labs RGBI to CJ converters, and then one of the cheapy 18 bucks Japanese arcade machine converters. And that works perfect on the 1000. So the next step is, now that it's working fine on the 1000, to see what resolution it copes with on the 2000.
I was going to say the 2000 has weird frequencies coming out for the video. The upside is that the actual original monitors, the VM1 and the CM1, is actually got a much better picture to my eye. than the PCs of the time. So, but also Tandy charged an arm and a leg for the monitors. They were not cheap, so they're hard to get. But but the downside, of course, is that you have to have some very special requirements in order to get it to work on anything other than a Tandy monitor. So good luck with that. You'll get there.
But most of the sorry, mate. Most of the kit I'm using is the stuff I use on arcade machines. So it goes all the way down to 15K and those sorts of things. So I should have the frequency range, but we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Do you get these machines in the UK or do you?
Oh, no. This was shipped from the US.
Well, you're dedicated, that's for sure.
Crazy is the word you're looking for, mate.
I've got a VM1 and a CM1, and neither of them work. I have a really nice 2000. I've never been able to play with it because I don't have a working monitor.
I had so my CM5 for my 1000. It was all working brilliantly. I was just getting lemmings loaded for my wife, and it went bang, and I thought,
so they're all doing that these days.
There's a older NEC LCD monitor that I've had success using with the color output on a Tandy 2000. The only issue is you can't turn the scaler off, so it's not as nice as it could be, but at least it works.
Was it the NEC one you were using?
Yes.
Yeah,
I bet it's an NEC AccuSync.
It's like a 1990 FX or something like that.
Is it an LCD?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got a flex scan, and it goes all the way down to 15K. So I've had real great use on my Gallagher board using it. So.
Yeah, it would probably look a lot better if you could turn scaling off, but you can't do that. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll stretch, won't it, because of the lines? Yeah.
Yeah, it stretches it out, so it gets the issue where some of the lines are a little wider than the others, horizontally and vertically.
Cool. Thanks for that, Steve. Eric.
Yes.
How you been?
Just got back from the car dealership, so.
Okay. Buy yourself a new car?
No, getting the first oil change for the one I bought 8 months ago. Not
Good
driving it, so, but 2:30, you expect when they say 30-minute service, you'd be out at 3, 2 hours. Or an hour and a half, I mean,
I'll be there tomorrow picking up a new car for my wife.
Oh.
That's like taking an appointment at the Apple store. Yeah, go there for the day.
What are you getting your wife, Pete?
Tesla Model Y.
Oh, really?
Oh, very nice. You're joining the modern world.
I figured. I bought some stock in Tesla last year. It's been very good to me. So I said, if I'm going to get her a car, might as well buy one that I own a little bit of stock in. So
that's awesome. Have you done any computer stuff, Eric?
Not really in the last month, just little bits here and there, but busy at work. So
yeah, story of my life. I'd like to be spending more time working on TRS-80 projects, but at the moment just filling orders and making ends meet. So, all right, cool. Moving right along, George Phillips. Hey, dude.
Hey, I'm awake. I was just looking at the YouTube chat to see if there's anything important happening there, which there isn't.
We're being ignored by them.
I guess there's 14 people there. So yeah, I've been having some great fun lately playing with ZMac, adding some new features to it. So I'm going to share my screen here because I've got a few sort of slides talking about the new features. So there, I think everybody can see that, can they?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I was sort of went back to look at ZMac, the cross assembler for Z80 code. I was fixing a few bugs, and I was kind of reminded that there's one feature I've always wanted to add it to it is where you could add sort of a pseudo instruction like load BC with HL, you know, which is really just going to be these two little things, right? Where you load, you know, B with H and load C with L. It's kind of trivial, but I'm kind of lazy too. So it's nice if you can just sort of write in one nice, concise, easy to understand line, which does exactly what you want without sort of breaking it down into little pieces. And I didn't want to write a macro for it because I couldn't call it an LD because that would conflict with the, you know, regular load instructions. And it would also be kind of a pain in the butt to write. So I thought about building it into the assembler. And I went to do that, and Yak growled at me and bit my hand and said, "You don't want to do that." So I gave up. So the other day I noticed that there's a ZASM assembler, which I think is associated with SDCC, but doesn't really matter. And it actually allows you to do this. And so I thought, well, if I want to be compatible with ZASM and have any sense of pride, I'm going to have to make ZMAC do this. So I got into an argument with Yak long enough to actually convince it that it was going to be able to parse this kind of thing. But I also noticed that ZASM went beyond this and actually lets you use register pairs in other contexts. So for example, all the shifts and rotates are available, and most of them are pretty easily decomposed. If you want to rotate right, say BC, all 16 bits, well, that's just rotate right, you know, the B and C registers. Shift right is a little more complicated, and for me, a little more easy to screw up because you want to shift right the high byte and then rotate right the low byte. And the other shifts and so on are pretty straightforward. RLC is kind of complicated, and I hope that instruction sequence works, but I got to admit, I haven't tested it thoroughly yet. And the other nice thing it allows is 16-bit, you know, register loads from HL or from IX. And this is where it gets a little more complicated, because to load, say, DE from HL, you have to load the low byte, increment HL, load the high byte, and decrement it. So that breaks down into a 4 instruction sequence. If you do it from IX, it's actually pretty straightforward, and it does the obvious thing, which is simply use the indexing features of IX to access the low and high byte directly. And I'm pretty sure I've coded it up so that if you do this with IX plus 127, which is the limit, it'll actually insert an inc and dec IX in there so it can, get to that out of range address without you having to worry about it. And the nice part about the Z80 is that you can do all this without any sort of surprising effects, I guess, is that inc and dec HL, they don't affect the flags. So, really this looks just like a load. It's the same as every other load. It does what it says on the label, doesn't have any other side effects. So that's kind of a nice feature of it. Then I thought, well, why stop with register pairs? Why can't you have triples or quads or any combination you want? So I went ahead and implemented that. So if you want to load CDE with AHL, then it'll do that. If you want to load, say, a 32-bit quantity from a memory location into BCDE, you can do that too. And this one is actually, again, another place where if I'm doing this by hand, I can easily screw up, because you want to make sure that you load the little end first and the big end second. And even if you remember that for the 16-bit case, for the 32-bit case, it makes you think. And the same thing with push and pop. You can specify, whatever combination of registers you like. Almost here, of course, since the Z80 pushes and pops things in pairs, you have to specify it as a list of valid register pairs.
George, why in the 32-bit case, the previous one, why do you have to do the low one first?
To be logically consistent. Because if you do it that way, you're mixing up your endianness and your so your 32-bit value will be big endian from sort of the 16-bit chunk perspective, but each of the 16-bit chunks will be little endian.
Okay, so you don't mean the loads have to happen in that order. You just mean that the first two bytes have to go into DE.
Yes, yes. And if you're feeling very sort of prissy about it, you want the loads to happen in that order because that's kind of how like a real Z80 would do it. But that is getting a little bit beyond the pale, my usual bailiwick. So with the push and pop, again, you want to actually push them in this order so that things are consistent. And the main thing, of course, is that pop is going to go in the reverse order so that you get the right result. And so intuitively, it's sort of, you don't even have to think about it. Look, I'm going to push these 3 registers, and I'm going to pop them off, and it's just going to work. And I cannot tell you the number of times where I've done a sequence like this, and I've mixed it up a little bit. And this causes no end of grief. Then also, looking at ZASM, it has a few sort of convenience things which are nice. I mean, from a strict Z80 point of view, you're supposed to say EXDE with HL. It's not an official opcode to actually exchange HL with DE, even though it makes no sense. I've made the mistake myself. In fact, even on this slide, the official version is on the right instead of on the left. And I saw that, I got to thinking, oh man, this is my favorite Z80 instruction. It's sort of like, a magic phone booth where in goes DE, plain ordinary Clark Kent DE, and out comes HL, the super register, where you can, do 16-bit arithmetic on it and load and store from that address now with, any register you like, not just a register. And this is actually pretty handy when you're programming because, take a look, for example, here is like, well, if you exchange DE and HL, add HL BC, exchange DE with HL, what you've done is you've actually just, added BC register to DE in pretty short order, which is kind of surprising because you sort of think that, well, only HL can do these things, but DE can do it as well. And for that matter, you can even do, other more complicated things. And here's a piece of code, which if you look at it for a bit, maybe after 5 or 10 minutes, I find, I might understand what this is doing, but it's useful, but it's hard to write stuff like this. Again, there's much to get mixed up here. This kind of thing always makes me think of the old symboling taunt, where they say, no means yes, yes means no. Do you want to hit me? You want to get hit? It's like, I don't know what to answer. It's the same thing here. It's like DE is HL, HL is DE. What's happening here? Is DE being loaded with HL? Is HL being loaded with DE or something different? Maybe there's people who actually don't get confused by this, but I sure do. So I thought to myself, well, why should I have, to do all this work in my head, which is going to make mistakes when the assembler can do it? And so I added to ZMAC the ability to use DE almost anywhere HL appears. So now you can, add DE to BC, just like I did in the previous example. It'll generate that code. You can load HL with the memory location at DE, which is actually what that previous bit of code did. Or you can do the usual kind of HL, operations that you normally only be able to do on HL, like a rotate right, or you can add A with the, memory location DE. But jump DE, you can't do that because unfortunately, after you exchange the registers and you jump HL, well, now you've gone somewhere and you actually still have the registers swapped. So that's going to sort of break the illusion that works properly. But I think in any other case, it will happily, assemble this as if DE were HL.
Will it generate an error for the last case?
Yes. It may not be an understandable error, but it'll be an error.
Okay.
I'm trying to make the errors reasonable, but sometimes they don't come out nice. The other thing that the ZADM allows, which I thought was really handy for sort of concise code, is that it allows you sort of C style or 6809 style to put auto increment and decrement when accessing HL or IX or IY. So you can write load A with HL ++, which will load A with HL and then stick an inc HL in there, or you can like say add A with minus HL, where it'll first decrement HL and then add A with memory location HL. And again, this all works out very nicely and intuitively and safely because the inc HL doesn't have any side effects on the flag. It's going to be exactly like an add as you expect. So for ZMAC, I just did that, but I thought, well, what if you wanted pre-decrement HL or post-decrement HL? We'll do that. And I don't think it allows IX plus D, so I did that too, even though I can't think that you'd want to use that, but I'm sure someone will come up with it. And of course, since DE can be HL, you can do it with DE. So now you start to be able to do things like, load IX minus +3 with the 3 registers ABC. And so here it'll just do the obvious thing. It'll put A in IX +3, decrement IX like you said, put B in IX +3, decrement, and so on. Or if you like, you can mix and match a little bit. So here's an example where you're going to OR A register with memory location DE and then increment DE. So it'll go ahead and swap them, OR A with HL, which is of course really DE, increment HL, which is really DE, and then exchange them. And we don't want to forget about the big swapper EXX, which is actually not in some ways quite as useful as EXD with HL because there's more restrictions on its use. But so I added that to it. So if you want, you can increment the memory location HL prime in the alternate register set, which is just going to do the big exchange, increment memory location HL, exchange back. Or if you like, you can push HL and HL prime, which I think I've got it in the wrong order there. That's okay. ZMAC will get it right. The slides are my own problem. The slides are demonstration of why I need these features. Or if you want, you could load B prime with the contents of DE prime ++, and it will generate this long sequence of instructions. But one thing it can't do is something like load C with the contents of HL prime, because the big swap is all or nothing. So you could load C prime with HL prime. That's fine because you can swap, do the load and swap back, but you can't easily get the Z80 into a state where you can perform something like this without some kind of nasty side effect, at least, that would make the instruction maybe a little bit surprising in some cases.
What about the stack?
Yeah, you can do that. And then I'm thinking about adding that, but that would mean that you would have to sort of know that you're playing with the stack, and because on occasion, sometimes it's not safe to manipulate the stack.
Yep.
So I call this a Taco Bell assembler mode, because at Taco Bell, I understand that they have like about 5 ingredients which you can get in any combinations, which is the same thing here. There's 3 or 4 different little features which you can pretty much mix and match any combination to produce horrifying instructions. So still working on a few things. There's going to be some kind of command line flags or pseudo operations which say that will allow some or none or some subset of these extended instructions. For the most part, it's pretty safe in the sense that if you take an existing Z80 program and assemble it with these super instructions on, well, it's not going to make any difference. But if you're programming from scratch, there are a few sort of possible ambiguities that might come up that could trip you up if you're unaware of it. So sort of have that ability. And there's a few other convenience instructions I haven't mentioned, sort of filling in the blanks that I'm going to implement as well. And as mentioned, brought up previously, I'm thinking about sort of some unsafe optimizations that you might be able to turn on if you want it for convenience. for example, if you want to exchange, say, BC and HL, well, about the only way you can do that is push BC, load it, and then pop HL to swap them. And it's like, that's okay, but now this is like it's using the stack, and that seems like it might be a little bit too surprising to someone who just goes to try and use it.
You'd have to do it that way for like IX and IY, right? Stack.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There's another way, which is like 2 lines down here. I might as well mention it now, is like another way you could exchange BC with HL is actually use self-modifying code. And so depending on how you feel about things, that may or may not be a better way to handle it. There's also some optimizations you can do which are a little bit unsafe. For example, if you're say doing a shift left of the A-B register combination, you might normally do a shift left arithmetic of B and then an RR of A. But instead of doing an RR of A, you can actually do an ADC A with A, which will have the same effect. But it's going to make the flags a little bit different. So again, that may be something to provide, but maybe it's something that you want to turn on explicitly so you don't get too surprised. A probably worst example is load HL with SP, which is an instruction that you sort of think the Z80 should have, but it doesn't. You can load SP with HL, but not the other way around. And the kind of canonical way to do this is to actually load HL with 0 and then add HL with a stack pointer. And again, it's okay, but it's a little bit unsafe because now you've got this add HL, which is changing the flags, changing the carry flag. And you wouldn't expect that on a Z80 that a plain ordinary load, what looks like an ordinary load, is going to change anything. And the other thing to add to this is to put in some peephole optimization so that suppose you do a number of instructions in a row that, are doing these exchanges of HL and DE or whatever. You can just say, look, if I'm playing with DE in this way for a considerable time, then I can just throw away all those exchanges and save the time and space. And certainly with the multiple loads, it's pretty easy to do. Doing it in between instructions is a little bit difficult, but I think I'll be able to implement that without breaking things too much. So yeah, I'm hoping that in general, by allowing you to sort of coalesce simple operations into slightly more complicated ones that will make code easier to understand. I think maybe there's also fewer mistakes. If you're ever manipulating, 32-bit or 24-bit quantities, it's pretty easy to get your stores and loads mixed up. Or again, with the pushes and pops, it's also easy to make mistakes. And I think this will help if you use those idioms. To a certain degree, it'll make the instruction set more regular, but there's still going to be special cases. So that's kind of a mixed bag, but I think that'll help. And certainly it'll make it easier to use the prime registers. And this comes at a cost, of course, is that these things are going to be more expensive than your regular instructions. But at the same time, you will get the convenience of, say, being able to write code and to sort of, at least as a first pass, being able to manipulate now 10 or 15 registers instead of the usual 8 or something like that. So I've got through most of this stuff. Some of the stuff I haven't implemented yet, but it should be available for download real soon now. So that's, as I say, this is actually great fun to put into ZMAC, to sort of watch it sit there and start generating these crazy instruction sequences. So if it's any other...
This will be optional. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really cool. I see a lot of real efficiencies there in coding some of issues that I've run into. But I would want to make sure I have a way to turn it on and off, so then I still have Z80 code that's compliant in, say, other compilers.
That's right. And I'm probably going to implement levels to this, but right now I've got a -- strict flag, which means only accept official Z80 instructions and, don't have any extension or anything, which is certainly nice if you ever want to write code and make it to be able to be portable to other assemblers, or if you want other programmers to be able to understand it without, having to look at it. If for some reason you wanted to use other assemblers, and I don't know why you would, but the -- strict is even worse at the moment in that it will only let you use official Zilog opcodes. So if you're ever in the habit of doing, say, an OR of A with B, then that would not assemble, because you're only supposed to be able to do OR with B without saying the A comma.
Well, I prefer to use ZMAC. I don't know what this ZMAC thing is.
What you're talking about? The Mac, ZMAC, the Mac? I don't understand.
Hey George, quick question. Will the expansions generate source expansions in the listing, or do we have to look at the machine to see what it did? What are you planning there?
At the moment, it'll just you'll see extra hex opcodes there and extra big cycle counts. At least in the documentation, I'm going to sort of detail the expansions.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for that, George.
Yeah, I will say I was a little confused when he started up the screen share and I saw my name on the desktop. I was clicking saying, well, where did that come from?
You noticed my secret stalking folder.
It would be nice if when the macros are enabled, if there was a listing option that would spit out what the expansion is, symbolically, not just the opcodes. Just a extended list option or some such.
I'll have to think about how to do that.
Okay, well, you guys can communicate between each other about that one. All right, let's keep it in Canada. Peter Phillips.
Can you hear me here?
Yeah.
I've been doing little things on the TRS-80 GP emulator. And I was going to share the screen too here, if that'll work. Okay. All right. Well, here's the latest version up and running. One of the first things is actually that I haven't gotten around to is, let's change over to a Model 16. Someone has dug up an operating system called UNOS. And we'll just get it inserted here. Short story is, it doesn't work on the emulator yet. Do a cold restart. It gets about a little ways in. This is the installer disk. It gets a little ways into the boot process, and then it hangs and somewhat after it mounts the swap. People have looked into it a bit. Maybe it's at the point where it's doing MMU operations, so maybe something is wrong there, but there's really nothing more to report. But it's yet another work in progress here. What I have been doing, I think this is the version 2.4.2 was just released, and that's one that supports the COBOL operating system. And this is like the work for the next version. If you look here, one of the things that got added in the previous version was that it can now boot using the HFE format, which is a flux-based format used by the Flash Floppy or GoTech emulators. So kind of a convenience. So if we swap over to, well, I guess 2.4.2 supports that, but it has some limitations in the debugging. So we can go over, say, to the Model 1. So if we insert an HFE diskette, and I've got a fun game here hold restart. So the game isn't the point, but this is actually running from what would be the GoTech image. And the new feature is that I've had a disk viewer for a while, but the disk viewer, it looks a little weird here because the screen, I've got my screen kind of resolution modified. It's just showing you that for the various tracks and sectors, what's on the disk. And this view shows you the data. And I'm adding more views for doing a bit lower level debugging. So this one shows you not just the data of the sector, but also a bit of the IDAM mark that's on the disk. So it tells you that, in fact, this block is in FM. So it's for the Model 1. And the head cylinder ID is all 0. And if we pop over to the next block, you see that this block here is MFM, and it's also block 0. Because this, you can see here, it says Duo Loader. It's a dual boot diskette, so it has both on it. But the new feature is to have a track dump. And the track dump shows you the same information, more or less, but for the entire track. And it gives you the details about what's in between the tracks, which might be interesting for debugging purposes. So again, now there's little markers here that says that the disk seems to start with 45 FF bytes in FM format and then 4 zeros, and then the IDAM marker. And between the IDAM marker, there's 11 FM bytes and 6 zeros, which now this is interesting to me, but the documentation, I think, isn't very clear about how big this gap should be, and what the documentation says and the controller does seems to be different. And with the HFE images, I can tell what the controller did if this was formatted on a real machine. So these are the two different boot blocks. Then we have the FM one, and then the second boot block is in MFM format. So now the mark bytes are different. The A1s are the special clocked bytes. And now there's 22 4E bytes and 12 0 bytes in MFM format. And the only other interesting thing is that because unlike all of the other floppy formats, which are byte-based, the HFE is the actual flux transition. So things aren't necessarily multiples of bytes, which doesn't come up here. But if this gap had a few bits left over, there'd be some notation here about just the flux bits that were left over. Because the whole point of the mark bits is that the floppy controller aligns to them when it sees it. So it might jump ahead, say 5 or 6 or even 10 bits. And the other bit of information you're getting here is clocking. As it happens with this disk image, we're in MFM format, and we did see the data is 4E, but one of the clock bits is inverted, the high one, 80 here. This isn't standard notation. I think a lot of people are familiar with MFM. They know they usually sort of just spit out these 16-bit values, but this just shows you that this 4E looks almost regular, except one clock bit is inverted. So if you're looking at a disk image, you might say, oh, there's a possibility maybe that's some missing data or something the emulator didn't interpret properly. But yeah, it's just sort of more low-level debugging features. Someone asked about this. It's like, no, you can't edit this stuff yet. It's just for viewing only, and it doesn't update very well. And then you can see that, well, just going through it, like the tracks of the actual full-length tracks. So yeah, that's the next kind of minor feature I'm getting in here. I want to do this for hard drives as well, but I don't have the code for doing the detailed track dumps. So, yeah, that's it for now.
Cool.
Thanks for that update, Peter. Looks great. What is
just-
Sledge of Rummel anyway?
Sorry?
What's the game?
Oh, it's something I got from Patrick Bureau. It's Sledge of Ramul. It's a Scott Adams kind of graphic adventure.
It's one I've not previously heard of, so well, that's good.
Yeah, I haven't
All
seen
right.
that one either. Just a quick note on Peter mentioned getting Unos to run in the Model 16. Just for those of you that are not aware, Unos was the first multi-user operating system that Tandy was going to release for the Model 16, but it never happened. They actually developed it, and it was just about ready to go. And then Microsoft came in, and one of their early displays of flexing their muscle and pushing people around, they kind of forced Tandy's hand to take Xenix instead. So that's why we
I
ended
thought
up.
more of it as a bribe, but yeah.
Well, kind of insinuating, you still want to run Microsoft Basic, right? In your TRS-80s? Yeah, something like that, maybe. So anyway, that's a little history there. That's why it's historically important, because it hasn't been seen running since, I guess, Tandy R&D back in 1982. So it'd be nice to get it running.
Yep, we'll get there. Okay, let's see. Joel Hilliard.
All right.
Hey, mate.
So I meant to have a nice hardware project actually put together and blinking at least a little bit, but it just didn't work out because parts didn't arrive. So I have a pile of parts on the table there. But first, I'll share my screen because there's not really much to look at on the table. Let me see here. Hang on. Because it's just a pile. It's just a mess right now. I've been playing with positioning and stuff, and then I actually took it into Visio, which is where I kind of like to play with things. And it started putting it together there so I could get a better representation of what this is going to be. But essentially, this is a Model 4. It was given to me at one of the retro meetup things that we had here locally. And the guy, it has a busted CRT in it. It has the digital CRT controller. And it had the motherboard and I think a couple other wires and in the power supply. And that was it. He said he was having trouble with it, couldn't figure it out. It was a 16K unit, and so it was just barely there. I didn't even know if it worked or not. I was like, cool, I'll have a spare motherboard in case one of my other ones go out. I'll have something to pull parts from. And then I was like, you know what? Well, my other ones work fine, and I don't know why I got the idea, but I wanted to put something to good use, and so I got this case. It's a clear acrylic or whatever they call it, a clear acrylic case. It's just 18 inches by 24 inches, and then it's about 3 inches deep. So it gives me a little bit of playing room. And I figured I would make this into a working Model 4, max it out as much as I possibly could, and then stack it with all these awesome creations that people are making that you can add to your TRS-80s, and try to cram as much of it in there as I can. I had released a picture like a day ago or whatever, and it was based on some measurements, this little audio mixer. I had based the measurements that Amazon had given me, but then when I got the package, I realized Amazon had based the measurements of this on the box. And so it was like 6 inches by it's ridiculous. It took up all of this space right here. And I was like, okay, well, I'm really glad. Oh, hold on. Oh, man. Why have I not gone where you guys can actually see this a little better?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, it's really cool. If I can get it into full screen, I can actually zoom in on stuff. Where did it go? I had it.
Control L.
Oh, there it is. It's staring me in the face. So yeah, it's this is a detailed PDF, so I can actually zoom in and it'll still retain its detail and whatnot. Patrick pulled me out and was like, "Hey, it comes out up there." So I've got to fix that. That's probably the only logical error there, but I've tried to kind of visualize how I wanted to put it together, because I always do these crazy projects where I just go hands in and start drilling, cutting. I don't think about what I'm doing or try to put it all together. I just try to keep it together in my head and then try to go from there. And I don't ever do it right, and something ends up looking bad, or I don't do it. It looks off, and so I wanted this one to look better. Wanted it to look really good. I'm currently still drawing out how I'm going to route the power from this distribution block to all the different parts that need their voltages and whatnot. But essentially, this system will have just about everything I could think of, minus the accelerator, which would actually cover up my pretty little processor. Oh, and then that was the other thing too, is I think Eric, I think somebody posted in the chat on Discord, was like, hey, this processor is on eBay. It looks pretty cool. I was like, ooh, what? And so it took a little while to get here. It's about 3 months, but it finally arrived. And I thought that it was just a Z80 and that it wouldn't work in the 4 or in the 16 or the 2. But it turns out it was a Z80A. And it actually worked in the Model 4 board, which actually kind of pushed this project into motion to kind of put it together. Because it looks really cool once it's running. It's really neat to see software and how it accesses the memory visually. Like, I don't know how to code, so watching it happen is just mysterious and amazing to me. So it's really cool. But yeah, this one hopefully will have a nice amount of LEDs to give activity and indicators. A lot of things just have them as it is. But you can kind of see how I've got everything kind of stacked in here. This is actually the graphics expansion, but instead of it being actually joined to its header here, I'll have a shielded cable that I will actually run it and just displace it off to the side here. If I had it installed, it would actually block the processor. So that's one of the things I've had to work with and figure out. And then also connecting it to the display choices that I've made here instead of having the CRT. I'm hoping that it'll retain its ability, that I can just grab this connector if I wanted to and plug it into an actual CRT board if I needed to. It should just work the same as it would in a normal Model 4. I'm trying to keep compatibility where things are reversible. I'm not trying to make any major modifications, just really kind of show off the different components that can be bought and used. I think they're all really cool, and I think this will be a great showcase for it. I didn't have my design here put together for stickers yet. My wife is gonna cut some vinyl for me, some vinyl stickers to actually get some nice lines going around it. And you can't really see that. I guess I didn't put the top of the case in, so it's just essentially a display case. And right here at the top, probably about 2 inches or so, you just have a flat panel that'll be at the top of the unit. I'm actually going to make that a nice little control panel where it will have the floppy switcher. If I can get one made, I think Paul's going to go in on it. We're going to try to get some boards made and get some put together. I hope to use it on this, because if you could tell, I kind of put a floppy up here so you could kind of see it, because it's kind of hidden. But I'm hoping to cram in a 5 1/4 360 drive to have, and then switch between the GoTech and the actual real drive if I want to make discs, if I have a program that really just wants to only boot from disk, and, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to be a fun attempt. I should have, this is all to size. I've measured everything with a ruler, and just, if it's an odd, obviously the GoTech is a weird shape, but I've essentially given it its space that it's going to take up. So these are all to size and how they're actually going to fit inside of the product. But yeah, so that's how far I'm getting. I'm just getting the wiring done. And once I have this where I can see it digitally, I'll begin the process of putting it together. And then a couple of people have suggested to do a video on it. So I hope to put a video together of it, putting it together and getting it going. But I think it'll be really cool. I've got to get a 50-pin header here. I know it kind of looks like the thread's just sitting there, but I'm actually going to install the 50-pin header in that on the Model 4 board, or at least on mine, there's a header position there that I can fill it. And so far from what I look like, it'll just I'll flip and reverse the header on the thread, and then it'll just plop down and seat in without having to run a cable. And then I can actually use the cable connection for the Orchestra 90 instead of having to make a double cable or whatever. I think it'll look really nice. I plan to just stand this guy up on some just nylon stilts, maybe just use a small amount of hot glue just to mark it to the main logic board, so it'll just kind of stand there and hold it. I think that's a good place for it. I'm going to route its buttons and the LEDs, everything, pretty much anything that has an LED that I can't, like that's not SMD, that's not really super small and tiny. If I can get access to it, I'm going to try to route it up to the top here into like a control panel in the top left. So it'll look really neat. You'll have a nice little control panel where everything will kind of flash if things are happening and whatnot. And then you'll have, of course, the flashing processor. And then, yeah, audio, of course, I'll be trying to mix the signal from the Model 4 output, the regular audio output from the cassette, and then the Orchestra 90 into this little mixer here, and then into this little 10-watt amp, which actually has built-in on-off volume and tone control, and then it's got a nice little headphones port that'll actually make it completely silent if I want to sit down here and goof off late at night and not bother anybody. But yeah, plugs into a composite source and a VGA simultaneously. So if I want to capture while I'm doing something, or I want to have choice of different video source, I've got it thanks to these two awesome little devices here. But yeah, so that's one thing I've kind of dipped off onto.
You are going to bring this to Tandy Assembly, right?
If I can make it, if I can get up there. It's Tandy Assembly is in October, and it's right on my kid's birthday, so I don't know if I'll have to be here or not, but I'm hoping I can. I think it would make a really cool display piece. Really cool thing. The goal was to inspire other youngsters.
Bring him with you.
Yeah, bring the kid.
Yeah.
Right? Great. Stack them up in the truck. And then, of course, some of you have seen, I've actually figured out, I don't know how many people have a DigiMouse, have a requirement for a DigiMouse. Those who use a DigiMouse, I don't know. I don't know how the need is out there. To me, it seems, at least for the 2000s, you got to have one if you want to use their mouse card. And I even went and tried to look on eBay, and I can't even find where one has even been sold. Or if maybe it's been sold, they just didn't sell it under the catalog number or the name. I don't know. So I found these awesome import mice on eBay. They're selling right now for like $20 a piece, and they look identical to your Microsoft Serial soap bar mouse. They're the same identical mouse, just the internals are different, and they're essentially a bus mouse. And so you can go inside and just essentially switch the rotary encoders to the active line, and then just rewire it to a DB9, and you have a mouse for the DigiMouse Tandy boards. I think that works with 1000, 2000. I don't know, I'm not sure what other units have them, but yeah. Those are the two things I've been dipping into, other than working on the 2000s. And then hopefully I can get back to my 6000.
Good on you, Joel. Thanks for that update. Hey, that box you got in, is that like a rack mount box?
Where, which one?
The one you're putting that Model 4 in.
It's a display case. They're sold online. I found it on a site called Shop Pop Displays or something like that. It's a lockable display case that I guess if you were like a merchant and you were at a brick and mortar store and you wanted to display something on the counter, or I don't know, it's like I guess just like just essentially a clear plexi project box. You can't tell, but I've got the top of it is buried in everything that's going to go inside of it, so you can't see the lid, but it's actually flipped open now vertically, and everything's kind of sitting on the lid with it, so I can work by moving the components, see if they fit and everything and whatnot.
If you Google 18 his measurements, if you Google it online, I've come across them, and they're about, I don't know what you paid, Joe, but they're listing about $80 to $90 a piece.
Yep.
They're not cheap, but
no, they're not.
They're quite available. There's quite a few sources for them.
I thought it was pretty cool. I thought it kind of fit what I was wanting to build perfect. It is a little short. I wanted it to be a little bit deeper. They say it's 3 inches, but it's actually 2.87, and because of the way the thickness of the stuff works. So I didn't get my full 3 inches, but I'll get past it. But yeah, it says 87 plus shipping, and this is the first one. It's cracked. You can't tell because I've got it's all covered up. It's still usable, and I'm going to use it as a prototype as I do the routing for the inputs and outputs on each of the sides.
Right.
Essentially just going to route a hole and just kind of make it to where you can actually, everything will be fastened down with, what do you call them? Fasteners in the unit. So it'll be rock solid. You should be able to just reach in, plug things in, hopefully not put too much stress on the cable ends. But I'll have a third one coming. The second one got lost. I don't know where it went. I didn't even get an email that it shipped. I emailed her like 7 days later. I was like, hey, I normally get a text from FedEx that something's on the way, and it never made it. And she was like, I'm sorry, it got lost again. we're shipping you a third replacement overnight, and we'll see if it arrives. Hard to get them shipped, I'll tell you that. They're expensive and they're hard to get them shipped. So hopefully I can make it work.
Thanks for that, Joel.
Yep.
Let's go back to the normal gallery view. There we go. Who shall we put on next? Vernon, have you got an update for us on what you were telling us about before, or your screen's still not cooperating?
Well, I don't think I pressed the right button. I think I have to press the share button here.
Yep, there we go.
Right. You know, right after you went by me, I said, "Oh, there it is." Okay, counting. It's just this little presentation here. The original version that I wrote about a year ago, more than a year ago, was using Matt Reed's emulator, and he had a 1 second pulse and measure of time for mathematical functions. What I've been doing also is looking at the mathematical functions and trying to optimize them in speed. And in order to do that, I have to run 1 million iterations and to get the time then divided by 1 million to say that's the time it took. I use what's called a simple byte per digit. Each byte would hold 1 digit, which is essentially half BCD. And this is an example where what's highlighted here are where my 16 digits are in the bottom, and at the top is where you put code in, like 810 hex, you would put code in there, and then that would jump around and increment this counter. You'd have to put it in by hand. And for example, if you had something like this, you wanted to measure how many times J is K, this would be the code that was there, and what you would see that hexadecimal 382441, I would put 382441. I have to replace the code in the counter code, and then I'd call 810 hex. And that way I would end up with, you can say from 1 to 576 here. I should highlight that. Yep. Oops. Wrong button. This is 576 down here. It's 1 byte for a digit. It was a simpler timer. That's the first round. The second round, once I got the TRS-80 GP emulator, I realized that it actually counts T-states, which really helped me resolve that problem. So I no longer needed the 1 million iterations to time my math functions. Again, this is 576, and I would put 4 things in. Over here, this is the integer, add, subtract, multiply, divide, single precision, add, subtract, multiply, divide, exponentiation, double precision, add, subtract, multiply, divide. Zero suppressed it, and the things didn't line up. And I said to myself, that's not a good act. Let's do a little better. The first round leaves too much chance. I have to stuff both the basic code as well as the counter code. The second round is a little bit better. I still have to remember to do this and do that. So I came up with the third round. The third round, this is the presentation that you get. And I now have a definition or label for each thing. And I have in things condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, some condition 4s, and condition 5s. They're explained in the documentation. And that's when the add-in or the origin is 0 or both, and things like that. And I can implement it with a CMDF, which will reset the counter and the CMDG, which will display the counter. And here's a simple display there of, I can tell that's something in high res. Also in the Model 4 emulator, here's a case where I just ran a little game and you can request a count. You don't necessarily have to get one. You can request a count, as in this game, by saying if something equals this, then CMDG, and that would display this. But you always have to get out of it by pressing break. This is a game that's was called Chase on the Model 1 way back in the late 70s. And I've embellished it a little bit. And I now expanded to 80 by 20 screen, 80 by 24 screen. So I enjoy looking at count, and once you leave the screen, you can bring the screen back up again. Nothing changed, and you can always review what it is. And it's a lot of fun to see where it also helps me redesign programs to minimize what we call condition 1s, condition 2s, and condition 3s. Condition 1, one of the arguments is 0. Condition 2, both of them are 0. Condition 3, the other argument is 0. And it was a lot of fun. And I really appreciate the TRS-80 GP's emulator because I've optimized a lot of my math functions because I can easily count key states and don't have to wait 4 hours to get the results of one operation. That's all, folks.
Wow. Thanks, Vernon. Good to see what you've been up to recently. Have you been doing any more stuff with multi-DOS? And do you do most of your work on the emulator or on your Model 4 these days?
I'm all emulator now.
Your model.
My Model 4, the power supply went, of course. And I'm not into trying to fix it.
Did it let out the magic smoke?
No smoke. It just stopped.
That happens.
That happens to all of us.
If they make a good replacement, you can get. This so far has worked for the build that I'm doing. It should supply enough for the floppy and everything that I'm working on. It's the RT65B from the Meanwell. As long as you don't short it out like an idiot like me, it should treat you well. It should get your machine working.
Oh, what is it again?
The Meanwell 65BT, I think.
It's a Meanwell RT. So Roger Tom -65B Bravo.
You want to throw that in the chat, Joe?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good power supply, but you have to be able to. There's a certain amount of rewiring required to use it. But what I was going to suggest, Vernon, was that there's probably locals around you who'd be more than willing to assist you in getting your machine back up and running or other things, given your long history in the TRS-80 world. So I'll pass your email address on to people if they request it. How's that sound?
Super.
What state are you in, Vernon?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, I am too. I'm in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I'd be glad to help you.
I'm in Maryland. I also have a power supply if you want one.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Perfect. We'll get a report from you next time around, Vernon. See how it's all coming along.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
Vernon.
Next, Dusty.
Good evening, Mav.
Hey, mate. What's new in England? You muted yourself.
We're still in lockdown, mate. Just a quickie. If you remember,
sorry, mate, you've forgotten the most important thing. Pubs open in 12 days. 12 days and counting.
Well, I'm PT. Just a quickie from the last edition of TRS 8-bit. The mystery item It was a microware computing services. I've got it. It's on page 48 if you want to look. It seems, according to Steve, it was a Model 1 high-res Model 1's graphics setup, which was only available in the UK. So that's quite rare, isn't it?
It is. In fact, I wonder. I just wonder how that sort of thing came into existence, because there must have been a need for it in the UK, but you know, Tandy in the US passed on it. It does require a hell of a lot of work to install it, because there's a fair amount of modification with inside the keyboard unit to work. But yeah, they come up from time to time in the UK. So yeah.
All right. Dusty, if you want to see one. So there's the internal mod. So that's basically the programmable graphics ROM. So programmable character generator. And then that connects to this behemoth, which is the video memory in a box.
Very
So
cool.
as Ian says, Tandy sold it. I've got the manual for it somewhere. So it's fully Tandy one. So I've got two of these. One which was done by the people who designed it, who is Applegate, and actually I've got a Tandy one as well. So as Ian says, they do very, very rarely come up.
I'd never seen one in the day. I've never seen one until Don wrote to me about it and say he'd found it.
Steve, where do you live? I might need to stop by and visit you.
near Liverpool, dude. The home of football and music. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pete's got a piece of hardware he doesn't own. Hold on.
That's right.
Doesn't happen often.
Security shields up.
Yeah. I thought while we're at it, I thought I'd mention TRS 8-bit. The last issue that came out, we announced another competition. It might have been a little bit unclear as to what it is. It's another game programming competition. The theme this time is to try to implement or render, you know, modern aspects of modern games onto an early platform. So you know, if you can think of a way to get
Crisis
elements of Crisis running, or yeah, anything. I mean, anything that's post TRS-80, by all means, try and program it. So I think that should give a wide enough scope for people to you know, think of whatever is the favorite part of their current favorite game and render it in blocky TRS-80 graphics and bleep-blop sounds.
Basically, it has to be a first-person shooter, right? I think those are the only games they make anymore. At least that's all I see my son playing.
Well,
yeah,
haven't they ported Doom to just about everything?
Yeah, Doom on the Model 1 would be quite a challenge, I think.
Wasn't that Death Maze? There was a Death Maze, wasn't there, on the Model 1?
Yep.
Yes, yep, not far off. Okay, let's see. Patrick Bureau. How's the paint shop going?
It's with work. I haven't had time to finish the project of doing the painting of that the Model 3 that Jay sent me to be done. By the way, sorry Jay, I had to send your box back. I promised to send it shortly. I've had to play. I'm trying to inject myself in two different things. One of them is Steve Hall was playing around with the Blue Pill GoTech project he started with, and it's working on his Model 4. And I started looking into the Model 3 wiring of the video card, of the analog card, and it's a little different. So I'm trying to do that. And then I got interrupted with this gizmo from Joe. I don't think he's here today. The TTL to VGA card that he's built. He sent one to troubleshoot it, beta test it with a Model 3. Ken has got a problem with his, I think it's a Model 2. He's got the same gizmo as I do, and he's got a problem. It's not working on the monitors. It's giving a weird look. I don't have an image of it, but it's like it's not working with the horizontal at all. We've checked clocks and all sorts of things going on and spent hours on it. So basically, I'm repacking this guy, and I'm packing that Model 3 that you see on the screen. Actually, that's a client. I have a Model 3 that I use for my bench testing and stuff, and I'll be sending all that back to Joe for him to, he says it'd be easier for him if he had it to troubleshoot everything on the fly instead of doing this via Zoom. So that's what I've been up to.
Thanks, Pat. Craig Skeels.
Hi. So
Hey.
I've started on a lot of things. Haven't really finished much, but I've acquired a grease weasel and a GoTech drive. Have my GoTech running. I do have a problem with trying to get the floppies, the real floppies, to act as a drive 1 or above boot from the GoTech. It seems to not like to do that, even though the floppies will work as a drive 0 and the GoTech as a drive 1. So still trying to figure that out. I've transferred over about 12 disks now. A couple of them didn't read so well, but most of them are actually reading, so pretty thankful for that. I've actually got a junior high science fair presentation booted up right now on my TRS-80. And then I just got this G-Tech 3D printer, so I can start making interesting cases and keycaps and all the sorts of things I see people playing with once I figure out,
I have the same one, so if you have any questions, let me know. That's the dual color one, right?
Huh?
It's the dual color one?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And specifically, I got that so I could try to get conductive stuff and actually make circuits out of it for some projects. But currently, it's hard to get the real conductive stuff. They have some that says it's conductive, but everyone says, well, it's got high resistance, so you can only use it for certain things. But I'm going to see how well it does, and maybe could do a keyboard PCB out of it or something like that. That's something fun. So, and besides some hardware acquisition, I was working on a cassette or basically transferring full discs from a real TRS-80 over cassette, so I could run them on an emulator without something like a grease weasel. And I got a good proof of concept going. I transferred one disc that way, and it was pretty fun. I'm not sure if I'll complete that or not now that I have the equipment I need, but it might be useful to someone down the road that is really on the cheap or something like that. And yeah, I found some of the talk of the Z80 instructions useful. It's been a while since I've really been diving deep into Z80 code, and I'm actually hand assembling it like I used to do when I was a kid, and typing in the opcodes myself through RSM. So maybe I'll pick up an assembler and do things a little more efficiently in the near future. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got right now. But
cool. Thanks for joining us again. All right.
Yeah. Last time it was actually on my birthday, and I just had too many people over, and I wanted to join, but I knew that I was going to get randomized that day. So I just watched through Facebook and off and on.
Don't you call the shots on your own birthday?
Well, you can, but kids get disappointed too when you do that. So I rolled with it.
And the cake was worth it. So yeah. All right. Thanks for that. Walter. Hi. Yep.
Sorry, I had two screens going. I couldn't find my mouse. I'm just actually working on a couple of things. I'm currently in the process of building one of these TRS IO devices. This one is for the Model 3 and Model 4. Last week I finished building the one for the Model 1, but I've yet to try it out. I have to build a cable first. And now I'm just basically finishing this one off. I got to build a cable for this one as well. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got going on. I had some recent acquisitions, but they're not Tandy related. They're ZX Spectrum related, but we can save that for another podcast.
Walter, have you programmed the EP32s on that?
I'm sorry?
Have you programmed the EP32s with the development environment yet?
I don't have the development environment. What I have is the little application that allows you to dump the code that somebody else has compiled for you.
Oh, could you send me details? Because that development environment sucks on the Mac.
Yeah. I'll send you. Which one do you have? For the Model 1 or for the Model 3 and 4?
3 and 4.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'll send you the little application. Let's see, Steve Hall. Okay. All right. So I'll look for you on the Discord. Okay. And then we can chat there. And I'm Walter on the Discord as well. Walter next.
You guys can reach out to Arno. He gave me a Linux setup, a virtual machine, I think, that I run on my Mac.
Oh.
So the last time I was playing with it, I was doing my ESP development. On
So
the
it's
Linux
like an
virtual
image
machine.
with the development already installed and ready to go type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier because that development environment is hell.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been lucky, and Matt Boy Kid, or I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with his last name, but he helped me with this. In fact, he's the one who sent me the boards, and he's the one who sent me the bin file to burn onto the ESP32. But I'd be happy to pass that on.
Cool. Thanks, Walter. Awesome. Al.
Well, I'm still here. Hi.
Hey, mate. How you going? What have you been up to?
Actually, I've been trying to find a TRS IO board, and I guess I haven't been doing much but work this last month. I did actually find the book that I had written my original bulletin board system from. I know my camera's a little fuzzy, but so I had found the major source code in ASCII format from 1985, 84 in that area. And I'm working on resurrecting that and trying to get all the pieces back together so it'll actually run. But somebody was speaking of Discord. Is there a way I can get a Discord invite?
Yeah, we'll get that to you, Al.
That'd be great. And then
Matt Boytim is the guy who I got my boards from. He has them both built and bare boards, so depending on how you want to go. So that's Matt, M-A-T-T, and then B-O-Y-T-I-M. And he's got these.
I think he sometimes joins us on air as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll be along next month. Yep. Well, just before you go, Al, what was the bulletin board running on? What was the hardware back in the day that it was built upon?
Well, it originally started on a Model 1 with 4 disk drives and a 300 baud modem, an Ovation JCAT. It then moved to a Model 3 with 4 hard drives and the Novation 300 baud modem. I still have all the hardware, including the modem.
Wow.
So,
That would have been a crazy
if
call.
anybody wants a bare modem board for $300, I got plenty of them.
It would have been
Yeah,
a
I
crazy
dropped-
tall stack of hard drives on your desk there. Those old 5 meg hard drives.
Yeah, no, I don't have any hard drives, so I did get a Fred, but I haven't hooked it up yet. And then I saw that TRS-IO project, and it's like, oh, that's the way to go. I want to build me multiple of those, and yeah.
Oh,
Al, I
that's
dropped
good.
the Discord invite into the chat for you. The Zoom chat.
Yeah, I see it there. Thank you very much. I will join promptly.
Cool. Well, next month we'll see how you're going with your bulletin board. Thanks for that, Al. Jay.
Yep. How you doing?
Good, thanks, buddy.
Not much, Roy. I'm working on making a bezel for the computer in which you can actually put on a front bezel if you want to replace it with something else. Like this would be for, let's say, a Fred. And if you didn't want to use a Fred, you want to put a GoTech in, you could just pop that off, put a GoTech one in. And if you didn't want to use the GoTech with that fancy one, you could just pop on one with the plain one and make it all modular. So, you know, you can have a nice, perfectly fitting bezel that's in your case. And it fits right flush up to the case. And I've been playing around with it and it's working out pretty well. And John Wiggins is being kind enough to 3D print me some templates for these things. And then I'll make them available. I probably won't even charge anybody if anybody wants them. Because it's cheap wood, you know, I'm not, you know, spending a lot of money on it. So I can have them available and anybody wants to play around with it. That's it.
They look great, Jay. Have we talked to Tim Halloran?
A couple of minutes.
Who has to leave?
Aaron.
Oh, you do, Aaron. You got anything to report, buddy?
Well, yeah, not much really.
You didn't float away in the Sydney floods?
It was much more than just the Sydney flood. It didn't really affect me totally, but yeah, there were lots of problems for lots of people. You know, if we don't have fires, we have floods. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, okay, I've got to leave because I've got someone appearing shortly. So I shall see you all next month or hear you all next month.
Cool. Thanks for joining us.
Aaron, stay dry.
Tim Halloran.
Hey, Matt.
Hello. Don't have too much to report. I've been getting back into programming a bit. So George's talk was of most interest. That's great stuff, George. I can't wait to delete a whole bunch of macros I have that do similar things. So it'll be exciting to get that. And very interesting live talk today between Vernon and George and Peter. Seeing all the software stuff was really, really fun. Most enjoyable. Hopefully by next month, I'll have something to demo that I've been working on, but not much so far. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Hey, Matt, let me drop a. Can I drop a Tandy assembly update in here first?
Yeah, let's go for an
Okay.
update on Tandy assembly.
Okay, great. So we had the first board meeting and the show is definitely a go for October 1st. We've updated the website. We've put out a call for exhibitors, call for speakers. The show is definitely, it's going to happen unless they, you know, legally don't allow us to do it. So even if it's going to be smaller than expected, even if we're not, you know, if we're going to lose money, luckily the show has been successful over the past few years. So we have enough banks to deal with these sort of contingencies. So the show is happening. So if you can get to Ohio in October, come and show off your Tandy wares, and I'll be there and the rest of the board will be there. And Mav, I don't think you will be there, but you'll be there in spirit.
Peter?
Yeah, if the border's open, obviously I'll be there, but it's sounding like it might be a USA only event, because I've been speaking to friends in Canada, and even their border doesn't look like opening anytime soon. So, but if you can have some sort of online presence that the rest of us can watch or interact with, that might be an idea.
We're definitely talking about it and looking into it. Yep.
Hey, Peter, are they going to have special rates for us for the hotel?
They will. They will.
Okay. And are we going to be in the same building we were in last time? Or
No,
is
this will be back in the hotel itself.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
That makes it easier to take stuff in and out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do we just contact you for like tables or like tech presentations or any of that sort of what, or are you guys going to get something out about that?
You can just send your proposal for a presentation to the tandyassembly@gmail.com. Or go on the website, tandyassembly.com. The links are there. What you need is there. So
sounds good.
Cool. All right. So we're in the last half hour of our 2-hour podcast now. So we'll just get through the last few people, and then hear what if anyone has anything else they want to mention. Let's look at John.
Hello, everyone. It's been great to see everybody, and definitely very interesting to see what everybody's been working on. So thank you for, sharing. I haven't been really doing much with the hobby, unfortunately. A lot of work and, kind of echoes of what Mav and I can't remember the other person was saying, where it's like, yeah, work. So the most interesting thing that I've done was to take another look at UNOS on the TRS-80 GP. That was interesting. It was interesting to see it get further in the boot process on the emulator and go through it, using what I know, and see, just how far it got. And Bobby and myself kind of, got it somewhat narrowed down to kind of where it looks like things are running off the road. But that's pretty much been it for me as far as hobby related stuff. So that, and having fun on Discord.
Cool. Yeah, I recommend anyone join the Discord if they want to keep up with all the latest stuff. Unfortunately, I'll be the first to say that my time to spend on Discord is really restricted. But if people want to reach out to me on there, it does ping me a message to reply to. So by all means, do that. Paul Burrell.
Hello.
Hello.
The video up. Don't have much to report other than I'm busy with work, as everybody else is saying. I've got a huge FPGA design I'm working on at the moment. So that's occupying most of my days and nights. I've done some testing on the memory and the MMU cards, and hopefully going to wrap that up here in the next week. But it's been busy otherwise.
Next month, possibly, or
as soon as I get enough time away from work. That's been my big thing. A lot of family things going on as well. So prioritization.
Life gets in the way.
Yep, life gets in the way. But I am looking forward to coming to Tandy Assembly, so I'm glad to hear it's definitely on, and I think I'm going to go ahead and book my tickets while they're still cheap.
Awesome.
Good idea. Great. Okay. Jeff C.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm just more of a lurker right now, but I've been enjoying TRS-80 Trash Talk. I haven't done a lot of projects yet, and have just sort of been getting back into TRS-80 retro computing after I found TRS-80 GP emulator. So just been enjoying the conversation, and thanks for letting me check in. I started off with TRS-80s in high school. That's what my school got instead of Apple IIes. So we were kind of in a little different crowd there. So soon enough, I'll hope to have something to show you guys, or at least questions to ask you guys.
So is that your first time here, Jeff?
I was in one other live Zoom, and I've watched the other live shows off of the YouTube recordings. So the YouTube recordings are very much appreciated, but it's a little more fun being live in the Zoom than on YouTube.
Yeah. So have you got any hardware that you're working on or are trying to acquire at the moment?
Well, what I like to do a lot of retro computing on hardware I built myself. So I have a Z80 S100 I'm building. It works, and I'm adding more boards to that. A Brill Computers Apple One. I haven't seen any such a thing for TRS-80 yet. You know, it doesn't have to be an exact replica, but sort of a, you know, build it yourself board that works like a TRS-80. I don't know if that
There's
exists.
the Pocket TRS, the Pocket TRS.
Okay.
That I have one. It's awesome.
I was going to say that
one.
It's so
Pocket-
tiny.
yeah, the Pocket TRS is pretty good, but there's also another one out there. You'll have to Google it. A gentleman did an official, well, not an official, a clone of a Model 1 into a rack mount case that is built around well, a hybrid of modern and vintage technology. But I don't know if they're available for to be purchased as a kit or something. But it's one of those things. I think if there was enough interest in it, you could probably acquire one of those. But that was a very interesting one. If you have trouble,
a big metal steel case.
Yeah.
Steel faceplate. Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, it looks
What's
like
it called?
scientific instrumentation from
Yes, it did.
from the Cold War era. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
Well,
that was a beauty.
Planning to do is to build my own on a couple of breadboards. I'm really interested in the propeller microcontroller and try and get the propeller to do the video part of the device and see if I can actually run level 1 ROMs, at least. Just come up on a keyboard using the propeller to do a lot of the IO on the side and just run it with essentially, you know, a Z80, a RAM chip, and a ROM, and kind of roll my own that way. It doesn't, well, famous last words, and you guys can ask me next time. It doesn't look that hard.
Well, we'd like a complete demonstration of it next month. Okay, so you got a month. That's plenty of time, isn't it?
Plenty of time.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
The just real quickly, the site was glenstuff.com on that modern TRS-80 Model 1.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I'll send you the email address.
I'd appreciate that.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks.
Not next week, but thanks. Or next month, but yeah.
All right. Good on you. Tom. Tom's just listening.
Oh, I'm here.
There he is. Turn your volume up a little.
Let's see.
Tom.
Hello.
Hello. How you going?
All right. No, I haven't been doing too much. Trying to get my room here organized so I can actually run my Model 1.
You know your camera's off.
Oh, sorry, I don't actually have a camera.
That's okay. I was just wondering if you were trying to show us around your room.
I did get inspired by the Trash Talk 38 when it was mentioned about the Computers and Programming magazine, because I happened to stumble across that magazine a couple weeks before that when I was doing some cleaning up, and I was able to dig it out of my pile of stuff. So I actually have the July-August 81 Computers and Programming that was mentioned. So I'm gonna try and get the time and scan this so we can upload it somewhere. And I know a couple people said it was on archive.org, but it has some kind of you have to check it out or something like that. You can't just download it directly. So I know a few people, had mentioned about wanting to, I guess, build the minefield project that was in there. Other than
Cool.
that, I haven't really been doing too much with the retro computing stuff. I've been sidetracked with work and other things.
It's that time of the year. Thanks for that, Tom.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us as well, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Sure.
Okay, lucky last, Peter N.
Yeah. Now, I haven't been doing anything with computers, but I have been trying to replicate one of the Radio Shack P-Box science fair kind of kits, the 38-100, which is the one-tube radio. I managed to get most of all of the parts, although they're kind of hard to find. But so I should be assembling that pretty soon now.
Okay, well, that's so you, just to clarify, so that's one of those old Radio Shack educational kits, is it?
Yeah, it was one. They started in the late '60s to about the mid '70s, I think, or maybe late '70s. They were just called P-BOX, and they were a red plastic box with a clear lid, and then all of the parts were inside of this box. Now the box itself is perforated. It's got a bunch of perforated holes. So once you take all the parts out and you build it on the box, then the box becomes the chassis. So they were quite popular there for a period of time. But nowadays, trying to find vacuum tube kind of parts is rather difficult. One of the items on there is just the old loop stick, the antenna loop sticks, and I found somebody or another on eBay that was trying to sell new old stock ones for like $78 a piece. So I just decided to go ahead and build them myself. Just get out a bunch of phenolic tubing, and stick it on my coil winder and wind them up, and put the little connection lugs and all that sort of stuff on it. So, yeah, it's just a one-tube radio, so it's just grid leak detection. And you listen to it with a crystal earphone. Nothing too spectacular. Runs on a 1.5 volt filament battery and a 22.5 volt plate battery.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little younger than you guys because I grew up in the '80s, but I don't recall Radio Shack having a tube radio kit. I can remember a crystal set and some other things like a 2-transistor radio, but not a tube one. So I have to keep an eye out for one of those. That sounds like a cool little project.
Yeah, if you go to the Radio Shack catalogs website, and you can take a look through some of the old catalogs, like the I don't know, pick 1972 or something like that catalog, and go through them, and they list all of the P-Box kits. They had a one-tube radio. I think they had a 1-transistor radio. They had, I think, a 2-transistor shortwave radio, and a little blinky light thing that used neon lights, and had a little, like a half an octave electronic organ, just a whole bunch of things just to learn electronics with.
It escapes me now, but I think I remember at one of the Tandy assemblies, someone was talking about the P-Boxes. I can't remember who it was. Do you recall it all, Peter?
No, I don't, sorry.
The strange things I remember. I can't remember whether they were talking glowingly about the P-Boxes or derisively, but they were a big thing for Tandy at one point. And so, but anyway. No, good. Thanks.
Yeah, they were, but they were just, a kit that just built one thing, as opposed to their 101 or 102, 2003 kits. It was just a big box with a whole bunch of components that you just wired up to make several different projects with.
Yeah, they're what I cut my teeth on, those things.
Didn't Paul Schreiber say he designed one of those kits that use some kind of like remainder chips that barely worked.
That's what I'm thinking. I was like,
Yeah, someone said
along
they
those
built
lines. Yeah, I've got to. All right, so I'll go and rewatch Paul T. Schreiber's talk. He must mention it in there, and because I'd never heard of them, it sort of went straight over my head. But I'll have to go and have a look at them. Cool. Thanks for that, Peter. All right. So with 10 minutes, anyone has anything they want to mention before we go? Say your name.
Yeah, I do.
George.
Oh, I just wanted to say how great it is to see Vernon Hester here. Easily the greatest TRS-80 programmer there ever was.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Here, here.
Yeah. Here. I hope you can come along to Tandy Assembly, even if I can't make it this year. Does someone want to give Vernon a lift there? Or I'm jumping to conclusions here, but it'd be good to have you come along, Vernon. Trust me, it's fun.
I'd also like to add that if there's any feature that TRS-80 GP needs that you want, Vernon, just say the word and it'll be done.
Okay.
Not kidding either.
We'd have Vernon. Vernon could be our keynote speaker if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Seriously.
Hard drives.
Absolutely.
Does GP support carrier detect?
Not yet.
Well, actually, in getting back to the last Tandy Assembly, Vernon, we actually had David and Teresa Welch there. So you remember those guys from back in the day? They were there. They're still kicking around and were they had a great time there. So yeah, by all means, it'd be good if you could come along. I just noticed one person here I forgot, Rob Carnegie. How you going?
Oh, not too bad.
Yeah, I got your emails. I just been inundated with emails, so that's why I haven't replied.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sorry?
Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say I wound up putting my TRS-80 Model 1 on the back burner. Ian's helping me out with it, so I'm not going to try to do anything to muck things up and make it more complicated. So, but I don't know, is it okay to mention the Radio Shack color computer in this group?
Sure. Yeah, we love those things.
Yeah, and I have one I bought from one of the members of the Chilliwack Retro Computing Club a few years ago, and never did much with it. And then a couple of days ago in a thrift shop in Chilliwack, part of a chain, I found a color computer cartridge. And the cartridges are like, it's the first one I've ever seen. Like they're that hard to find. So I got the thing down, and this particular one sort of Radio Shack's version of the Atari Star Raider type game, but with more of a defend interaction. But once I had the thing down and started messing around with it, it made me sort of wonder, like, how did these guys not completely put Apple out of business altogether? I mean, it was, I think, about half the original purchase price of what I paid for my Apple II back in the late 70s, and does everything it can do and many other things that it can't. Really quite a neat little system. And I guess you guys probably all already knew all of that, but for me, it's a novelty because I just never gave the thing the attention it should get. And really quite a bit nicer to program than Apple Basic because of so many features that are built into the language, as opposed to doing a lot of peeking and poking or writing little machine language subroutines or whatever. So that's what's been occupying my time. And if you don't mind me mentioning something that's really not TRS-80 or Radio Shack, but I'm a member of a group of retired IT managers from back in the mainframe days. And next month, I'm doing a talk for a bunch of IT managers that are still working, but more from the network era, on the subject of the history of computers. And I was researching to try to find a little more about the history within Canada, and discovered that a Canadian company made the first microcomputer ever offered as a completely assembled system. That really blew me away because I've never, it's not a claim that's been widely advertised, but it's authenticated. It's just when Canada does something, it doesn't count as being the first. It only counts when the United States does something. So, and this machine was called the MCM-70. It had an Intel 8008 processor in it. It was sold as a fully assembled, ready-to-use computer with a typewriter-style keyboard. It was first offered for sale in 1971. So I'll leave it to the audience to decide whether or not they can refute that claim. But I'm now going to go around telling everyone that Canada invented the microcomputer. It doesn't include the Kinback 1 because it didn't have a microprocessor in it. It's the first personal computer. The MCM-70 would be the first microcomputer because it has a Intel processor in it.
Is there any of them around, the MCM-70s? I'd imagine it would have been for 71. It would have been super expensive, so maybe not a big volume seller.
Yeah, I don't know that it would have been widely adopted because it was developed at the time when IBM was experimenting with prospects of making personal computers more in the industrial range, and IBM believed that the APL operating environment was going to be the big thing. All computers, personal computers, would have APL on them. So the MCM-70 has it. The very first IBM PCs that were distributed on a pre-release basis. So these are the ones with a bronze power supply. They also came with APL keyboards, and it was the University of Waterloo was writing the APL environment for the IBM PC. And then behind the scenes, I guess IBM did the deal with Microsoft, and time just completely forgot the University of Waterloo's efforts on that subject. So I guess that obviously everybody knows APL turned out not to be the thing, and the fact that these were strictly APL computers kind of relegated them to probably the junk heap. I don't know of anyone that has one anyway. So, but if you encounter one, let me know. I'd love to be able to mention it or talk to somebody that used one.
For bonus points, what does APL stand for?
A programming language.
Very good. Yep.
Yeah. And
The
actually
write only is in parentheses.
I actually have the machine that the University of Waterloo was using for the development. So it came with an APL keyboard. I'm not an APL user myself, but for those that don't know, it doesn't use the standard ASCII alphabet. It has special symbols rather than commands. And so you can't just keyboard use it.
People wonder why it never caught on.
Yeah.
Thanks
I got
for
the book right here.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a machine from University of Waterloo too, my super pet. Right?
They did a lot of innovative stuff at that university, didn't they, Peter?
Yeah. They had some pretty cool stuff.
Yep. All right, let's wind this thing up. Any last words from anyone? Nope.
I released a game.
Oh, yes, you did. Quickly. You got 1.5 minutes.
Everybody here probably saw my
Everyone
posters.
knows Roundup.
I finally got Roundup out the door after 1.5 years, and I released it on cassette tape and in the retro packaging, and I'm so psyched because it was one of the things, if you listen to the podcast or talk to me at attending somebody, was one of the big things I wanted to do was a release a TRS-80 game, just like it was done back in the day, and I succeeded, so I'm really happy.
Yeah, I saw it on eBay there. I'm really pleased to see that it's already starting to move. So that's a
yeah.
Have to grab myself a copy. I'll get it off you at Tandy Assembly.
Hey, just to tease you one more time.
Go Go for it, Steve. What are you saying?
Let's see if we can get this shared.
Are you packaging up that high res?
I won't share. The photo won't share. I'll drop it into Discord, but I've got some photos of the high res system running for you. I'll ping
I
it.
thought you're going to put it in a box, right, and ship it.
We'll see. No.
Neither would I.
It appears that no one who had these high res systems ever got rid of them, because I can imagine they've only sold about maybe 20 of them, and they come up from time to time. I know a gentleman in Australia who's got a few of them as well. So, all right, it's right on 2 hours. Thanks everyone for coming along. Until next month, we're going to do it in another month's time, aren't we, Pete?
That's the schedule.
That's the schedule. All right. Take care, everyone.
Right,
now,
thanks.
All right.
go away.
All right.
See you.
Bye.